Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which is the extended Labor Day weekend with a crap ton of movies set to be released. And yet, amidst all of the noise of all of these new releases, it seems like the old reliables are going to once again perform pretty well. Deadpool Wolverine is set to have another first place performance, even several weeks out from its initial release. Alien Romulus also expected to have a pretty strong third or fourth week, and it ends with us also continuing to be in the discussion, whereas newcomers like Reagan and Afraid are not set to do all that much. And with both of those movies not really having, as far as budgets are concerned, the biggest, but also not necessarily the smallest either, it's going to be very interesting to see the long-term prospects of either film to be able to make their money back, especially since the trailers for both of them are leaving a lot to be desired, to be perfectly honest. And so we'll talk about that a bit and also some other updates. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light that fire button over on Odyssey, smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed, hit that bell, that way you get notified every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So over on Box Office Theory, Sean Robbins over here on Box Office Theory, he has a pretty good methodology for predicting these things. And as you can see, Deadpool Wolverine right now is projected to make $14.2 million. Again, very impressive numbers here for this rated R flick. 22% drop from last weekend. So this far out from an initial release over a holiday frame, that is just, again, very, very impressive to say the least. It says right here, or at least it looks like what you're going to have here is a, again, extended weekend total of $18.4 million. So it's expected to get over $600 million by the end of this weekend, by especially the end of the holiday frame. And Deadpool Wolverine obviously entering into that $600 million territory while still making over $10 million on a weekend means this film still has, again, quite a bit of money to make, probably getting upwards of $650 million potentially at this point in time, which means it's going to have a pretty interesting battle between it and Inside Out 2. Remember, we've been kind of following and the tracking on those two movies. Deadpool Wolverine has been ahead because of its much larger opening weekend versus Inside Out 2, but I think Inside Out 2 probably will be able to start to edge it out in the long run. But a number like this is definitely going to keep Deadpool Wolverine very competitive, at least when it comes to the domestic battle, right? The international battle, it seems at this point, is definitely going to be remaining forever in the camp of Inside Out 2 because it has crossed $1 billion. Deadpool Wolverine has not been able to do that or even come close to that, but still can't take away the fact that Deadpool Wolverine is going to be probably the number one or number two, most likely, box office hit of the summer, box office hit of 2024 in at least that domestic marketplace. Alien Romulus also seemed to be doing pretty well. 41% drop, as I mentioned, $9.7 million this weekend, bringing its total to 91.7. So this film easily on track to be able to get to over $100 million domestic. So pretty impressive numbers there. It ends with us also continuing to do very, very well. Again, all these top three films are over 3,000 screens still in after several weeks of release. Just kind of also shows you that though the box office might be back for these specific films, it is definitely not back for all of them. And this is especially true of some of these newer releases set to come out, right? Number 4, at least fourth place, projected right now to be in fourth place, is the upcoming film Reagan, being distributed by Showbiz Direct. Really have no knowledge of them as a distribution company, to be perfectly honest, but only expected to make $7.7 million. Remember that this is a movie that's targeting or trying to target that older demographic, right? That older demographic that really has not been able to show up for a lot of films. This is why a lot of films directed towards the Gen X, probably more so baby boomer audience, mostly have been fails, mostly have not done well, right? Some might try to point to films like Sound of Freedom, but really that film drove out pretty much every segment of the audience to support that movie. It had a message behind it, a message that most sane people could easily support, could easily, push forward. When it comes to a film like Reagan, it's a biopic about Ronald Reagan from the 1980s. Again, when you think about that movie, you can say it out loud. If you're really honest with yourself, yes, you might have some younger audiences that have an affinity towards Reagan that might actually be interested in that film. But in general, this is going to be directed towards much older people, right? And they just don't not show up to movies anymore. They just do not show up as far as being a mass part or mass segment of a movie-going population that shows up with any sense of consistency. This has been one of the interesting themes to follow since COVID, right? Before COVID, you had this block of people that, again, showed up in much greater numbers, really has not ever recovered since that point. And I don't suspect that that's going to happen this weekend for Reagan either. Expected to only make $7.7 million in the 3-day, $9.3 million in the 4-day totals. Twister is still also in the discussion as well, dropping only 18%. Pretty impressive there. Despicable Me 4 expected to increase, I believe this is what that's trying to say, by 11%. So very impressive there as well. The Forge dropping there 31%. And the new film afraid about AI taking over someone's house. Basically, Smart House, the horror film. If you've ever seen Smart House from back in the day, shout out to anyone who grew up in the 90s like I did. Afraid, $5 million there over the 3-day, $6 million over the 4-day totals. Again, not really all that impressive there. Going over to Box Office Pro, again, similar story here, right? Deadpool Wolverine expected to take that top spot between 8 to 12 million over the 3-day total. Alien Romulus is expected to take 6 to 10 million over the 3-day, and Afraid expected to actually come in the number 3 spot with $6 to $10 million. So a little bit interesting there that they have that as the number 3 film with 6 to 10, whereas for this one it also has it 6, but they don't have the other films being mentioned there. Remember that when it comes down to Box Office Pro, they've really fallen behind quite a bit since Sean Robbins left, and so I wouldn't be surprised if this is just them focusing on newer releases and not much on anything else. If we go over to the charts, because we love charts here on OMB Reviews, there's also another film not being talked about coming out this weekend called 1992. Yeah. Again, I've seen the trailer for it, and though there might be some interesting story to be had in it, it's just a general movie that I don't think is going to drive a lot of people out. No reported budget as of the recording of this video, but I suspect probably costs in that $20 to $40 million range based off of certain reporting as far as films like it with the cast that it has. But $20 to $40 million, yeah, doesn't really matter, I think, how much this film ultimately costs. It's just not going to really make much of anything because, again, it's not even being talked about in any of the actual charting. The film Afraid cost $12 million. Again, I was recording this video. That was reported budget. So that means its break even is going to be probably north of $30 million based off of the typical standards of today. And so having a single-digit opening weekend projected means that, yeah, is it possible for this film to maybe catch fire and take on? Sure. I don't think a lot of people are really into the AI horror films, though, right? People think about Megan as an example, but that has a lot more of that Chucky vibe going on for it, right? It has something that I think a lot of people were kind of interested in, right? It had that great word of mouth. So Afraid could do that, right? It has to get that word of mouth. It has to actually be a good movie. But seeing that we really haven't heard a whole lot about it, the trailer is mid at best, using modern terminology, right? I don't think that's going to be enough on its own. So again, haven't seen the movie itself. I can't say for sure, but we'll have to wait and see what some of the early thoughts are, especially from the general audiences on this one. And then Reagan costing $25 million. Again, so not the biggest budget in the world, but costing enough to where when you're opening up or projected to open up in single digits, or at least maybe low double digits, yeah, it needs to make a lot more than that if it's going to have any chances of actually breaking even at the box office. Now, again, because it's being distributed by company that I've never heard of before, you could potentially see that film get its rights sold to an Amazon or to a Netflix in the future, and they might be able to make their money in the long run there because, if we've known anything, sometimes films like this that are, again, geared towards those older audiences do much better when they actually hit the digital market versus when they are in the theatrical market. So, again, Reagan's story is not completely a story of sadness and of gloom and doom, but, again, just always trying to be honest with the numbers because I just follow the actual theatrical, because post-theatrical is a lot harder to track ultimately and a lot harder to really make any type of sense of. Notice also in that discussion, The Crow is not there. Crow dropping 61% on its first Monday, not expected to do much of anything. Again, not even in the discussion, at least in a box office theories chart, and I don't think on anyone's chart is that film going to have any like real chance of success, and so we're expecting this film to have a massive drop-off, and yeah, do not be surprised if this thing hits digital very, very, very quickly, and yeah, it's not going to get anywhere close to that $125 million that it needs to break even. As of the last time I saw the update, my chart right now, of course, is deciding to play some silly games. Let's see if I can get this to update in real time. Probably not, because the numbers are actually so low, it's sometimes hard to actually get accurate numbers. So even if you look to the internationals, right, 1.3 million, I know that it's actually a little bit higher than this, but the numbers even is not really having up-to-date reporting on this just because of how no one is going to see this movie. It's not the biggest box office loss of the year, right? $71 million is currently where the film is set to be losing as far as what its current loss is, but do not suspect that to get that much better. We're still talking about a film going to lose over $50 million by the end of this weekend, the fact that it's not even in the discussion. Whereas you have other films like Alien Romulus, which I've mentioned before, is on track and on pace to make its money back, and I do suspect that by the end of this weekend, if these numbers continue to hold, let's see if we can get these updated numbers here. Right now it's around negative $27 million, and again, expected to have a top 3 performing weekend over the holiday frame. So I do suspect that you could have this movie be able to either break even this weekend or get very, very close to breaking even. And as I mentioned, it's going to be able to break even, going to make some decent profit as well based off of the current projections that we had. We talked about this on the box office breakdown for this past weekend. Right now, projections as far as profit is between 73 and 150. Again, that is using an older multiplier. So more realistically, probably going to be closer to maybe 50 to 75 million in net profit as far as its total gains are likely to be. But hey, that is definitely much better than what anyone could have suspected for a film that has been very divisive amongst fans, right? Hardcore fans seem to hate it for the most part. There's a few out there that seem to enjoy it. General audiences seem to be enjoying it quite a bit. And so there has been this divide, right? The hardcore fan base typically are the ones that go to see a film once, twice, 3 times. And instead, what you have are some of the normie audience, or maybe a handful of the hardcore fans going to see this film multiple times. Apparently, that's enough for a film like this, though, for it to be able to, again, be on the track to make some money on it. Also, some very interesting numbers here from China. $73.3 million being reported right now. Just remember, that's fool's gold. 25% of that actually goes to the studio. The rest of it goes to the Chinese Communist Party. So, again, always take those numbers with 1, a grain of salt, and 2, a bit of judgment. Because Hollywood continues to fund the Chinese Communist Party, and no one seems to be calling it out, except for people like me. Because, again, I always try to be honest with you, always try to keep the numbers as they actually are. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you plan on seeing any of these films this next weekend? If I had to nominate any films to be, it's actually 2 films not on my charting because they are much smaller films. They are, again, much smaller on the chart. Let me go ahead and see if I can actually pull up some of the numbers for these films because I think that they are pretty darn good. So first off, I would recommend Strange Darling. First found out about this movie from the good people over on Film Threat, and I saw this film last night. Film is phenomenal. Very, very well done, but as you can see, not in a lot of theaters. It's been out for 5 weeks now as far as the theatrical release is concerned. So if it is playing near you, I highly recommend it. It is a very, very good film. Go in with as little information as you can. Try and go in as blind as you can because I do find that it's so much more enjoyable as the film continues to peel, right? The layers continue to peel. If you want to see my full review on this film, go see it over on criticalist.com, OMB Reviews over there, and I have my full thoughts on it. Gave this a most excellent rating. One film I found to be a bit better, though, in certain regards, is the film DD from Focus Features, also a film recommended by Film Threat. This film has actually been out for quite longer, right? It's actually been out for, Strange Darling came out last week. It's been out for 5 days. DD been out for much longer, 33 days. Got to see this film a couple days ago. This film also, one of the best films of the year, right? When we're talking about 2 of these movies, probably going to make my top 3, at least top 5 movies of 2024 because they are just phenomenally made movies, objectively good movies, but also films that I found myself enjoying quite a bit as well. This film not really available in too many screens either, only 33. And again, this is a film that I think is starting to leave theaters, but if it is playing near you in any of these cases, I'd recommend both of them. DD, I think, is definitely probably one of the more palatable of the 2 because the film Strange Darling is one that deals with violence, deals with themes of a sexual nature, but is very, very good. Like an onion, the layers start to peel away as the story is told out of order, but for very, very good reason. And I'll just leave it at that because it is pretty darn good. But wanted to get those little thoughts, little reviews out there. But again, I have full reviews for both of those movies over on criticalist.com. As you all know, when I'm in school mode especially, it is a lot harder for me to be able to sit down and actually bring my thoughts together and actually get reviews out there. And so again, I do apologize for people that do enjoy the video reviews that I tend to do on certain films, but I do hope that this is able to quench whatever thirst you might have for that very weird way of expressing it. I don't know why I said it that way, but anyway, if you've been watching this far, let me know. Was that an odd comment? Yes or no? Anyway, thank you all again for watching this video. And again, let me know your thoughts about what do you think is going to be the #1 film of this weekend. And are you planning on seeing any of the newer releases? I know that there are a bunch of people who have some interest in films like Reagan, for instance. Maybe a couple that might be interested in Afraid. Again, for me, Deadpool Wolverine. Still a very good time at the theater. And Romulus was a pretty good time as well, though again, definitely has its flaws. And again, those other 2 films, DD and Strange Darling, I would also give probably those 2 more so than any of the other films a strong, strong recommend. I think they're actually better made films in many, many ways than Deadpool and Wolverine, whereas Deadpool and Wolverine has that entertainment factor going on it in spades, and obviously much higher than even those of the other 2 films I mentioned. But let me know your thoughts about those things and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, line up that fire button over on Odyssey, smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Thursday, and as always, God bless. now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members here during the month of August, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illich and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And also to the K-Man. Check out his website, xtheboundaries.co. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and beautiful people, have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed August, and as always, God bless.